topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to Leadership for Life with Gina Gardner on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Join your host, who is a multiple #1 international best-selling author, motivational speaker, empowerment and transformational leadership coach and trainer. She's the founder of Genuinely-You and has 30 years experience of helping people step into their genuine, authentic power. And now, here is Gina Gardner, your host of Leadership for Life.
Hello there and welcome to today's show, and we've got a great show for you. I have a wonderful guest, Andrew Miller, who I'll introduce you to after the first section. Today's program is called Purpose with a capital P, and Andrew's going to be talking with me around having a purpose within your business and how that can make a huge impact, positive impact. But I want to broaden it out in this first part of the show to talk about purpose. What is your sense of purpose? Do you have one? But before I do, I want you to just go over the fact that we are very proud members of B1G1. Masami Sato, who started B1G1, has a most amazing sense of purpose. She wanted to make a positive difference in the world, and she set up an organization where businesses could use kindness not only to help people on the receiving end, but also as great business too. If you comment or ask a question during the live program, then we will donate on your behalf. For the number of people who download, we also donate, and our guests are invited to choose one of 3 projects for this month, actually, to choose which project they would like us to donate to on their behalf. You can find out about B1G1 by going on their website. It's very easy to find, and it's an amazing organization. And it comes from one person's sense of purpose. Now, I work with many people who come to me because they are successful, but they think, is this it? You know, I've got all of the trappings of success and yet I still don't feel fulfilled. And why is that? And I believe that a big part of that is that they have not yet identified what their sense of purpose is. And many people think that it's a bit like the Holy Grail, that your sense of purpose, your divine purpose is a something, and it's a job or it's an activity. And my advice to people who don't have that strong sense of purpose is to really think about living your life with purpose. That means in every activity, whatever it is, whether it's the washing up or taking out the rubbish or, cleaning up after somebody or making the bed, doing whatever you do with passion and with purpose can make such a difference to the quality of your life. If you've listened to earlier programs, I'll have shared this story, I'm sure, before, but I think it's worth sharing because it identifies exactly what I'm talking about. I was on a Tony Robbins course, and I've done most of his courses and became a crew member. But what struck me about this particular story is Tony Robbins was talking about going over to India and working on an ashram. And the deal was that 8 hours a day you would work and you would get your board and bed and the spiritual teaching for free. And he was assigned on day 1 to the washing up shed. Now, part of the work of the ashram is that they provided meals for hundreds of thousands of people every day. And the meals were cooked in huge cauldrons and they were dolloped onto tin plates with different sections in them. And Tony Robbins' job on these, for his time that he was there, he was assigned to be washing these trays. Well, you might say that's not such a bad thing. Now, he's about 6'7". He is huge. The height of the shed was not compatible with his height. So he had to bend down the whole time because it was simply too tall. It was hot, it was humid. And on the first day, he was grumpy with a capital G. He banged the trays about. He wasn't enjoying himself. He was having a bad time. And he was actually making it worse for everybody else simply because of the energetic vibe that was coming from him. That night, he went to his bed very tired, and it didn't help that the bed was probably over a foot too short for him, so his feet were sticking out the bottom. And as he calmed down, so he started to have a very strong conversation with himself about, well, you're here for 3 weeks. What are you going to do? You're going to refuse to help? You're going to make everybody's life a misery because you're helping with bad grace? And he made the decision that he was going to change the way in which he approached things. And so on day 2, he went in, and his whole purpose for that day was to make the job enjoyable for other people, to do it with great heart and with passion, because in some small way, he was helping the ashram help other people. So he got them singing, he was telling jokes, he was doing his job. And at the end of the day, he reflected that not only did the day go very much more quickly and in a much more enjoyable way, but actually everybody else had enjoyed it too. So if you haven't got a sense of purpose as an individual, then live your life with purpose. Everything you do, enter it with a full heart, with a full sense of, I'm going to do the best job I am capable of on this day. I will do this job, and I will do it with humor and with a real sense of contribution. I believe that purpose is so much about contribution, and other people may have another view and be interested to explore that with Andrew after the break. But have a think about your life. Do you live your life with purpose and with passion? Do you turn up and enter into things 100%? Or do you go in there and you make motions, but you don't really enter into the spirit of things? Do you have a sense of purpose which is around service and helping other people? Or do you always expect other people to be the ones that help you? My mum had a saying, and she used to say that there are people who are washing up makers and there are people who are washing up doers. Are you a doer or a maker? Because ultimately, when you're a doer, then I think you get more out of life. Now, that's not to say that we are human beings and we need to be with ourselves, but ultimately, living your life with purpose is not about sitting on a hill, cross-legged with, your eyes closed doing nothing. Living a life with purpose is about making the most of every day, being in the moment. And I believe that purpose is around service too. So in a moment, we're going to have a break and we're going to go into the interview with Andrew Miller. And he's done some amazing work with businesses, helping them find their purpose. So ultimately, if you're a business owner and you're listening to this, while we have the break, I'd like you to think about how much passion and purpose do you have for your business? What is the purpose? What's your why? Do you know what that is? Because when you do, it's easier to communicate to other people and get them to have shared ownership of it. But think, be honest, no stories, no judgment. And if you lack that sense of purpose, then the interview after the break is an ideal opportunity for you to think about things perhaps in a different way. So don't go away. See you in a couple of minutes.
You have been listening to Gina Gardner on Leadership for Life. We'll be back after this quick break. Want to get the best out of life personally and professionally? Are you ready to step into a life which excites and fulfills you? Well, the right place for you is Leadership for Life with Gina Gardner on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. We will share with you stories from inspiring people a wide range of guest experts, and lots of practical strategies to help you get the very best out of your personal and professional life. Leadership for Life is a radio and TV show focused on helping you live a happier, more successful, and fulfilling life. Join international best-selling author, motivational speaker, empowerment and transformational leadership coach and trainer, Gina Gardner, live every Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Become the leader of your own life. Gina Gardner's #1 international best-selling book, Thriving Not Surviving: The 5 Secret Pathways to Happiness, Success, and Fulfillment, provides you with the foundational principles on which to become the best leader of your own life. It's available as an ebook, paperback, hardback, and as an audio from genuinely-u.com, or also from Amazon. Every one of the principles have been proven to work for the countless people who have used them, including the author. Now, let's put them to work for you. If you're ready to discover your true leadership life design, accelerate your journey with an invitation to join Gina for Leadership for Life VIP Day. Choose your journey of self-discovery where Gina will help you navigate your way to happiness, success, and fulfillment. To find out more, email Gina at genuinely-u.com. Welcome back to Leadership for Life. Here is your host, Gina Gardner.
I'm really excited to be welcoming Andrew Miller. Andrew Miller and I both belong to an organisation called Collaboration Global, and Jill Tiney, who is the founder of that, has been a guest on this show. Andrew is an amazing guy, and I'd like to read you his bio. He's the founder of Business Enjoyment, a business coach, multiple author, and TEDx speaker. Andrew has significant experience in both running businesses and helping people with deep-seated beliefs and emotional hang-ups. Most business gurus focus on building a 6 or 7-figure business, probably at the expense of something else. Andrew works with business owners to help them be successful and actually enjoy the journey at the same time. So, without more ado, let me welcome Andrew Miller.
Hi, Gina. Thanks.
Hi there. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolute pleasure. And I enjoyed your talk beforehand. And I think what listening to your that story and what you're talking about is there's a lot coming out there about choice. And I think that's a very key thing in all of this. There's never anything we have to do or must do. That's an important thing that we're going to be talking about today. But everything that you're doing, it's all about throwing stuff out there for people to pick stuff up from and give it a go and try it. And if that way doesn't work for you, that's okay. Find a different way. But that tale you told, it's like, I can choose to be this way, I can choose to be that way, but it's up to me.
Ultimately, we choose moment by moment how we turn up, don't we? Either the victim or the hero, grumpy or good-natured. And I was writing a thing this morning, about energy vampires or energy batteries. People you spend time who just go and suck the very life out of you. But anyway, enough of that. So tell me a little bit about you and how you got to where you are now.
Okay, so background is I used to be an accountant. Hooray! It was a very specific form of accountancy. It's something that doesn't really exist in America, but it's more familiar in UK and other Commonwealth countries. But it's called an insolvency practitioner, and they do have insolvency in America. They have Chapter 11, but it's done in a very different way. In this country, if a company goes bust, the bank basically calls in the mortgage, appoints a firm of accountants, and you take control of that company, not sitting in a boardroom making theoretical discussions. You're there on the ground, making second decisions, trying to keep the business running, having to get the customers on board, having to get the suppliers on board, having to get the team on board, keep it going, keep it alive, and hopefully sell it and keep all the jobs intact and go it forward. That was with KPMG, global firm. And I did that for nearly 17 years. So my job was running businesses. That's basically what I did. Interesting circumstances and challenging circumstances, but that was my job. And I got to the point where I realized that actually I had one of those aha moments and realized I actually just wasn't enjoying what I was doing. Nothing against the job, nothing against the firm. I was just, like most of us, follow that path that we follow. school education just to get a job, do a job. I was good at it, but it wasn't really what I wanted to be. So it took me a while to work out what I wanted to do. I realized I was much more into people and working with people and working what was going for them. And so I stepped out and found out about coaching, moved into coaching. And when I first started, it was very, very niched. It was working with business owners that were going through financial difficulty, going through business failure, but help them deal with the emotional side of it. The confidence impact, the what it does to them inside, because it rips people apart.
Yes.
There are crooks, there are people that can just scale over it, but most people that go bust are genuine people that put all their emotion, all their money into it, and watched everything they built collapse, and it has a huge toll on them. That got so far, but what I've realized was, you touched on it earlier on, with those really successful people that still aren't really happy. Someone that's just lost their business, you kind of understand where that comes from. But people that are really successful, why aren't you happy? And I realize that even people in between that are just doing okay, that's it, they're doing okay, they're getting by, they're not really zipping and whatever. And that's so I thought, well, that's where my concept of business enjoyment came from. If you're not enjoying what you do, what's the point? At the end of the day, you create your business, so make it one you enjoy.
I couldn't agree with you more. One of the things that struck me when we were talking prior to this show about you coming on the show was the concept within your TEDx talk. And I wonder if you'd share that with people, because I thought it was incredibly powerful.
Which concept do you want me to nail down into?
Well, that's true.
Because it was like,
You choose.
Okay.
What do you think will be most useful for people to hear?
Well, I was inspired by or revisiting the concept of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We talked about that before, and stepping away from the actual model, just the basic concepts of it. You look at it, you think, oh gosh, yeah, it actually makes sense if you apply in certain ways. And I developed what I call the business enjoyment model, which in essence sort of says, look, we've got to have certain things that we need to be happy about.
Yeah.
Making sure we're okay. So we've got to make sure there's enough money to put food on the table. We want to look after ourselves physically, mentally, all these sort of things. We want to be working with great people that really sort of, set us on fire, both in terms of clients, team, suppliers, friends, all that sort of thing. But it's very, like you said, you mentioned about the energy drains or the vampires. Sorry, we want to moving away from them. So we want to be surrounding ourselves with the right kind of people. And within that, we've got to be dropping the shields, being prepared to be vulnerable, risk rejection, in order to allow the right people in, because there's a lot of issues in that sort of space. And then, of course, we need to know that we're making a decent contribution to that society. So people saying good things about us, but we also need to say good things about ourselves too, and we're really bad at that sometimes, because we go into that all imposter syndrome and everything's got to be absolutely perfect, and if it's not perfect, it's not good enough, and all that sort of stuff. So we have these ground things that are kind of like, as Hertzberg would call, hygiene factors, in that we only notice really when they're not working. We know when we don't have enough money. We know when we've got idiots surrounding us. We know when we're sort of beating ourselves up inside. But it gets to a certain point where you can't really go any further. And that's where we then move into the next step, which is where is actually moving into a sense of purpose that you're talking about, doing something that is outside of us, making a difference in the world out there. And now it's not just about us. It's not just about looking after ourselves. It's about making a difference to something that's important to it. It has to be important, not just doing it for the sake of it. Yeah. It has to be connected. And that's what the journey is about, is understanding what that is and what that connection is. Because when you get connected with that, you can use all the additional resources you've picked up and the other things to move into a positive, world-changing arena. And when I say world-changing, it doesn't need to be like B1G1, which is transforming the world type sort of mission. It can just be something that's important to you. You change the life of one person, you've changed the world. Yeah.
And I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, you talk about purpose with a capital P. So imagine I'm a new client, How would you define that to somebody who perhaps it was unfamiliar?
Well, if I may just set a little bit of context, because purpose is one of those words.
It's a big word, isn't it?
Yeah, it's used a lot now, and sometimes can be overused, and everyone's got their own definition and all the rest of it. So, and again, this is about choice. These will be my views and my perceptions, and you take what you want. So let's set a bit of context and recognize that as humans, we're not in balance with nature anymore. When you look at nature, when you think about what's the purpose of a dolphin or something like that, it's not about catching fish. Every animal, they're all in harmony with each other. It's all synchronized and in balance. And primarily, every single creature has one objective, and that's go forth and multiply. At the end of the day, you continue the species as far as possible, and usually that requires living as long as possible to do that. Not always, but putting it very simply, that's the main objective. For whatever reason, we are outside of that norm. And this is what, and so the standard purpose, the reason for being, the why, doesn't really fit in with our society. There are people that behave like that, and it's not really considered the done thing. So we have this existential angst. Essentially, there's too many of us around. We're just doing jobs that just because jobs need to be done, and we buy stuff. We work in order to afford the stuff that we don't really need, and now we've got more stuff, so we need to earn more money, so we need to work harder, and it just becomes this perpetual stuff. So we end up in this position where we don't really know what our place in life is, and hence the questions. This is where we get the questions around why are we here, and what's it about, and that sort of stuff. So just to set the scene, that's why purpose is important. And because we're about one of the few, we're the only creature, the species that's lost it at the end of the day. And I think there's three levels. There's like a practical purpose, there's a specific purpose, and a general purpose. There's probably more, but that's just keep it simple. So in a practical purpose, if you're talking to somebody who's unemployed, they've been unemployed for 3 years, and they're going to spare, they're making no contribution. They get a job, and you suddenly hear the phrase, I have purpose.
Yeah.
Well, that's a practical purpose. That now I'm actually active in doing things. I'm not going insane in my head. I've actually got reason for getting up in the morning and that sort of sense. You can then have specific purpose, and that's what you were alluding to in your introduction in terms of I'm doing a task. How can I do this specific task in a specific purposeful way, bringing joy and elemental and all the rest of it, all the things you were talking about before. And then there's general purpose, and this is purpose with a capital P. This is what some people might say, why was I put on this planet? Well, we know we weren't put on this planet for anything. We've just said we can find it. That we can find it, and this is the journey to go on to find that connection, understanding who we are and how we can take what we've got and make a difference to something that's important. And that's where we're into the sort of the capital P purpose. And I do have a definition.
Cool.
And there's lots of bits that sort of float around, some of the big books that people may be familiar with, like Simon Sinek, Start With Why. That's very popular. Ikigai is a big thing that people have read, that book. For me, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning is a massive book, not in terms of size, but in terms of impact. Yes. All of these things have little bits, but none of them actually give me the full answer.
No.
So my definition is a bit longer, a bit earlier. Not nice and impactful as Ikigai is. There isn't a nice little diagram, but it's based on what my journey was in order to find my purpose at the end of the day and what I've thought about. So I'll read through the sentence if that's all right.
Absolutely.
Each bit does have a little bit of meaning, and if I can go through at least some of them, give a pause.
Yeah, go ahead.
P, purpose with the capital P. It's a meaningful mission.
Yep.
That's important to you, probably not achievable, based on or around passionate, stimulating work, positively driven by a deep personal why, wrapped up in your own story.
Sounds good to me.
Let me explain. So mission, we kind of understand it's something we want to be working towards. And meaningful is the Viktor Frankl's sort of sense of meaning. It's got to be beyond us. It's outside of us. We can benefit as a result, but our prime focus is making sure someone else is better off. And then when you talk about B1G1, that's very much a meaningful sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it's got to be important to you. So when you look in B1G1 and you've got all those different charities, there'll be some that resonate and there'll be some that won't. Don't just give money to a charity that doesn't mean anything. what sings to you? Why? And then you start thinking, well, why does that sing to me? Why is it important to me? For some people, it might be family. That's important. It's outside of you. It's important to you. Whatever it might be, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what other people think. Their opinion doesn't count. If it's important to you, that's what matters. Probably not achievable. This is an interesting one. It's about taking away attachment to the outcome. Now, as a coach, I'm kind of a little bit anti-goals because everything's got a goal for everything, and I'm not allergic to goals. They're great in the right place, but we can over-goal sometimes. And part of the problem is we get attached to having to achieve. We must get that done, and if we don't, we get stressful as we try to achieve it, and then we collapse afterwards. And there's actually a pattern around goals that doesn't work if we don't do them right. So if we're waking up thinking I've still not achieved something, we're going to get stressed. Whereas if we're detached to it, so world peace is an example. That's a great thing to aim for. We're never going to achieve world peace. It's impossible. But if every single day I manage to calm people down, calm myself down, make the life better, it's still a journey worth going on. This is about.
I just wonder if I may. What was the action of the journey? I think is the important thing, and I think so many people get hung up on the goal that they forget to actually engage in the journey and take the positives from the journey.
Absolutely, and
I think that's one of the
where
problems.
purpose works, because when you and your business are going in a certain direction, trying to achieve something, it all becomes all about the journey.
Yeah.
And I was speaking to somebody. I was interviewing somebody on my podcast yesterday, and he says, "I have a mission every day." And it's not massive, it's not major, but every day we have a mission, and every day we complete the mission, and every day I'm happy.
And one step closer to the
bigger thing, yeah.
So sorry to interrupt you, but I just felt it was important to, I think for people, we're so used to talking about this, but there'll be people out there listening for whom this is quite a different concept. So anyway, carry on. Sorry.
No, that's right. It's fine. We can go into spin into each one. But yeah, it's I mean, that concept of this attachment, we could do a whole program just on that.
A program that probably lasts 6 months.
But absolutely worth picking up. So we want to base it on or around passionate work. So we want to be doing what we're good at. It might be what we do is not the actual thing. It might be what we do. It allows the other thing to happen. So we can create a business which allows to free up funds or resources to make the thing happen rather than it being the thing itself. It wants to be stimulating. In other words, it doesn't want to be too easy, which means we also need to be the best of our game. So if the work is too easy, then we let other people do that. We can still charge for it. We don't devalue it, but we can be the best of our game and keep getting better and better at what we do.
Yeah.
Now, the next key thing is we've got our deep personal why, and this will be something deep inside. You don't need to share with anybody. But this was the hardest thing for me to find. There are some people who find their purpose through trauma.
Yes.
The speakers on the stage will tell you how they went bust and got over it, how they got out of drug addiction and got over it, how they got through a difficult life, childhood and got over it, sort of thing. And now their purpose is making sure other people don't go through the same sort of thing. And again, remember, I used to work with people that had gone bust, and a lot came out of that. But I don't want to set a business goal of, a business plan, say go bust in 3 years' time, just so I can discover my purpose.
No.
You know what I mean?
I do, yes.
But deep inside of us, there will be these little things that trigger us. So mine was so minuscule that I didn't even notice it, but it had an impact on me. Quite basically, my brother played a trick on me when I was like 4 years old, and my entire family laughed at me. And I just instantly felt this feeling of rejection and not being able to open up to people and not trusting people, and all these sort of things then played out throughout the rest of my life. So I became a people pleaser because I wanted to make everybody like me and all this sort of stuff, which has strengths, but it obviously holds us back. So all of us has these little traumas throughout our life which shape our patterns. But if we can find out what that thing is, that's our deep personal why. The problem is it can trap us. So it can be something that fuels us, gets us motivated, and gets us driving. Let's say when we were younger, let's say our parents lost everything when we were young, and we were scarred by the fact that dad had a business and it went bust. Now I'm in a mode where I must never lose anything. I must keep going and going and going. So I build a business and a bigger business and a bigger business and a bigger, and there's no end to it. Success, success, success. But the pain is actually increasing because I've not actually dealt with, it's a negative driver on that thing. So we need to deal with that and turn it into a positive driver. So it needs to be positively driven by this deep consecutive why. And that's where a lot of cases, you find this so much with these sort of multimillionaires, is that they're scared of losing everything.
Yes.
And then we wrap it up in our own story. So this is you know, for marketing purposes, Simon Sinek will call it his external why. For marketing, it works well, but ultimately, this is why we're not going to know it from the day we're born. And we've got to go through life. We've got to mess things up. We've got to explore, but we start building that connection with what's inside of us, with that difference out there, and what we do shapes what that looks like. And now we're building a mission that's connected everything together.
I find it really, I agree with what you're saying wholeheartedly. It's at the heart of the work that I do. But I find it very interesting how many people do not make the connection between either the drive that they have to succeed or to avoid something and their behaviors. I refer to them as strong suits, you know. So a personal strong suit is I used work to avoid pain, because when I'm really, really busy and I'm interested in what I do, I can switch the body off and I don't feel the physical pain from my back and all of those things. But of course, you take it to the point where you do it because it works, and then you do it more because it works, and then you do it more and more because it works, to the point when actually it becomes destructive.
Absolutely. And everything's got a tipping point where it moves into the dark side.
And I think for everybody, if you're listening or watching this, just become aware of your particular patterns of thinking, emotions, and behavior. Become the journalists of your own life. You know, examine your patterns. No judgment, no story, but just watch and listen to what's going on. And then when you're aware, you've got a chance to do something different if you choose, which brings us back to the whole business where we started, that everything we do is a choice, isn't it?
Absolutely, exactly that. And that's exactly it. When we do stuff, have we done that stuff because it was the right thing to do, or have we done it because we just felt compelled to do it and didn't really think about it because it's our
and
natural
right thing for whom
as well? Yes.
Because so often what's driving us, even as, you know, I've worked with people who've been, you know, well into their, well, let's say mature years of their life, who are still being run by their parents, even though their parents may no longer be with them. You know, they're trying to please someone else rather than tuning into what's right for them.
Absolutely. And again, that's why it needs to be important to you. And these are easy words, but they're not hard. So, but they're easy words, but they're not easy to find these things. And as you say, it's looking at those patterns. What does my life look like? What decisions have I made? What impacts? What patterns do I run? And what can I learn from that to make a different choice going forward that's more me?
And I think so many people don't know who me is. They're so busy trying to satisfy everybody else that they've never really discovered who they are when they're being authentically them.
I mean, authentic is a great word, isn't it? Because if people don't know who they are, how can you be authentic? Do you know
many people.
Do you know?
And when do you know you're being authentic? Yeah.
There's always, again, another word that gets bandied around a lot, but there's a lot of substances in it, and it's not an easy. Oh, be authentic. Oh, okay, I will. Which version of authentic do you want?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to just go back to explore a bit more about the not having an attachment to the outcome, because again, I think many people will think, well, what, you know, you need an attachment to the outcome. I want to do that. I need to succeed, and it's really important that I do that. So talk us through your concept of not having an attachment.
Yeah, there's a concept of high intention, low attachment, and it's probably quite Buddhist in many ways in terms of let go of all things. which way we do it? Well, I'll do this very simply. If you're blowing up a balloon, you don't actually blow up a balloon with a vision in your head of what the balloon's going to look like. You might have a rough idea because of the shape of the balloon, but sometimes you don't always know. The balloon has its own natural limits. All you do is you blow. So it starts with an internal energy. It's something you want to do it. I want to do it, and therefore I will do it. And then you stop when it feels about right.
Yeah.
I kind of don't care what the balloon is. You know, I've got a rough idea whether it's going to be a long one or how big it is, but I just need to blow up a balloon, tie it, and move on.
Yep.
If you're going to get worked up about what the balloon looks like, then that's going to cause stress. Whereas all you do is blow up a balloon. To give another example and break down the high intent, high attachment, let's think for an example of so imagine, I don't know whether you're into sports at all. Are you into sports? No,
ish.
You know somebody who
but a lot of our listeners may be.
No, absolutely. We want both. So imagine you're not into sports.
Yes.
But your other half is, if you're listening and you've got another half, and they're massively into their sports. So they're sitting watching the game. If their team loses, they're depressed. And if the team wins, they're really happy.
Yep.
Good day, bad day, determined. That is controlled by something that is totally outside of their control.
Yes.
So they're highly attached to the outcome.
Yes.
But there's nothing they can do to alter it.
And so many circumstances in life and in business are just like that, aren't they?
Absolutely. Set a goal, sales target, £1 million turnover. Why? Why that figure? Okay, whatever. Hit it. So what? Don't hit it. So what? If you've got 900,000, you're kind of okay. But we set these arbitrary things and then we beat ourselves up when we don't actually achieve the thing, which is ultimately 90% of it's probably outside of our control. All we can focus on is ourselves and the actions we take on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
You know, and then if we're not interested in the sport, we still aren't able to control it, but we're not going to be driven. We're not going to be motivated. So if you're not interested in sports, let your other half watch the game. I'm going to go off and do something else. There's no enjoyment in it because you're not invested. Most goals and things we're talking about are set in the high attachment, high intention zone of the quadrant. So you're very driven to do it and you're highly rewarded when you achieve it. But it normally results in stress as you build towards it because it's like, I must get it. The date's coming, the exams are coming. Oh my God, I must revise. Whatever it might be. Up until that point, we haven't achieved it. So every day we're waking up in failure mode. Well, I haven't achieved my goal again today because it's over there somewhere. And there's such a build up to it that very often there's a crash afterwards.
Yes.
So if you watch a pattern of salespeople, sports teams, even yourself, you know, someone had a quote like always work as though it's your last day before going on holiday. That whole thing where you work absolutely flat out on the Friday, you go on for vacation, and then you're ill.
You're ill.
You've got this sort of peak cycle going on, and then you say, well, just build another goal in, and then it just gets knackered, tiring. It's like having an energy drink that keeps you going. And yes, it does work in a short-term basis, but ultimately it tires you out because you can't keep drinking the energy drink. Whereas if you start letting go of the outcome and just focus on what you can do with a general direction that you're moving in, what do I need to do? Just keep going in that direction. Perfect.
Yeah.
I know where I am. I know what I'm doing.
I find it quite interesting, and I do a lot of work strategically with businesses, how often the goals that are set bear no resemblance to the capacity that there is within the circumstances. And I think one of the reasons why there are so many people who are depressed, anxious on antidepressants is in part due to the fact that they work in organizations where the goal is set, and if they do achieve it, then all that happens is that they set goals that are much higher. So they continue the stress to the point where the goals are ridiculous and unreachable, and everybody knows that they're unreachable, but they always think that you should be adding 10% on next year, year on year on year, or they don't meet their goals. And I found one of the things that's really interesting is if you start to look at, well, okay, rather than a numerical goal, if our goal is about how we operate as an organization and the sort of service that we offer to our client or customer, and a shared understanding of what excellence looks like in the context of those things, there is a natural progression where the performance and the productivity improves exponentially, and the businesses are therefore more profitable and more successful. But it's done in a completely different way. And I just wondered, in terms of your experience of working with businesses, how you felt that the best way to approach these things. Businesses want to see they need to make profit in order to be able to sustain wages and equipment and all of that. So what for you is the approach that you, and I know I'm generalizing hugely, but are there principles to your approach that you would share, generally speaking, with the companies that you work with?
In terms of, in order to sort of actually make sure that performance happens and we're getting success.
Yeah.
I tend to work with smaller business owners as a general rule. I do have clients with larger stuff and they've experience of working with them, sort of thing. But so certainly when they're the one person in charge of got all the weight of the pressure on their shoulders at the end of the day. I have a general policy and a belief that most people kind of know what they need to do. We can always learn more. We can, and there's always new strategies and always great stuff out there. But bottom line is, we kind of know what we need to do. We're just not doing it. So, and this is where, if you do have a purpose and mission, obviously that makes it very clear about the direction you're going in. It makes it also very clear for the people who work with you. So the team members that are coming on board with you, there's the customers, the suppliers. I want to be working with that person that's going in that direction. That's the bus I want to be on, as some people say, So it becomes a lot easier to generate the motivation. And then it becomes down to allowing people to have individual responsibility. So if you've got, if you don't know what to do, you ask, you go looking. There's a thing called Google. 90% of it's on there, YouTube, whatever. You read a book. The answers are out there. It's just finding for it. So if you've got the motivation to go in the right direction and you know roughly what it is you need to be doing, then it's just a question of what's stopping me doing it. And then either that's what I'm working with the business owner on, or they can work with their team on. It's like, okay, it's not a problem. We all have our issues. I couldn't pick the phone up and ring people. I mean, I just physically couldn't do it. Okay, why? Let's explore it and let's see what we can do to unpick the thing that we've got to do. So less worrying about the detail of what needs to be done, but getting focused into what's the driver and what's that emotional hang-up that stops us doing certain things, and then the rest can just slot into place. It's research then after that.
We're coming to the end of our time. Are there any things that I haven't asked you, or things that we haven't had an opportunity to look at before we finish that you think would be of real value?
Oh, so much. Where do we go?
You have to go back.
As I say, I mean, well, just to echo one thing that we talked about before about goals. At the beginning of this year, I had a clear intention of what I wanted to achieve over January and February, and for various reasons. Had I stuck to that and been rigid on that, I would never have done the TED Talk. Because that came out of nowhere. It was an opportunity that arose, and it didn't actually fit in. But because I was able to be more flexible and thinking about the general direction, it's like, absolutely, say yes and go for it and see where it goes. So that's just another little thing in there. And the subject of that talk and what I talk about is it's the title of the talk is it's more than just money. And that's what life's about, it's what business is about. We live in a society where business is measured purely on sales and profits at the end of the day. You look at the Financial Times, the stock in the New York Stock Exchange, read the paper, it's all about essentially money.
Yeah.
And that's important, but by itself doesn't work as a good measure. And so you need to be thinking about the other things that are important and be treating them with just as much value and importance in terms of the well-being of your team, the impact you're having on the community and the environment around you, all these different and ultimately coming down to it is, do I want to be here?
Yeah.
Am I getting up in the morning and going, yeah, I'm making a difference in the world and loving what I do? If not, you have the power to change it. You may not know what that change is or exactly what you need to do, but know you can, and go.
I think that's so important. And for me, I talk about that, the profits are the outcome of the way in which you operate. And ultimately, your staff are your treasure. And if you're all singing from the same hymn sheet, then you can achieve the most amazing things. Where can people get hold of you, Andrew?
Yeah, just go to my website. It's probably the easiest, businessenjoyment.com. I think it's on the screen. It'll have most links in there to finding me where you want. But LinkedIn's a popular place as well. And but I would just use my name's Andrew Miller. It's not the rarest name on the planet, so it might have come up. But if you stick in business enjoyment anywhere in any search engine, you'll find me.
And presumably your books will be on your website and on Amazon and places like that.
Yes, absolutely. They're all on Amazon. There's a page on my website, and also there is a pop-up will come up when you jump on that website. You get a free copy of the More Than Just Money book. And if you click on the banner at the top, it'll take you to the TED Talk, and you can have a look at that as well. All that, and
fabulous. And I'd really urge you to go and have a look, because there's some great stuff there. B1G1, which project have you chosen?
Oh, I've got to remember now. It was your fourth one.
The fourth, it was the Ukraine, education, clean water, or it was health. So which of the four?
It was the no, it was the third one, I think. The forest of Betam,
environment,
coast of Madagascar.
So reforestation, and a project that's really interesting, because as they reforest, so they engage the locals, and the locals not only plant it but look after it, in the knowledge that as it becomes established, they have firewood and they have the wherewithal to use to create their own businesses based on the forest thriving, and that brings in all the animals and so on. So thank you very much for choosing that. And
again, bringing people back into harmony with the
absolutely. So isn't it wonderful? We've ended up where we started, which is absolutely fabulous. Thank you very much for joining me. We're actually not going to have a break and go to the end of the show, because we're actually just a minute away from the end of the show. But I want to ask all of you listening to this, having heard about purpose in terms of your own life or in your business life, what is it that you are doing? Do you enjoy it? And if you don't enjoy it, why are you still there? Because if your belief is, I've got to do that because I can't afford not to, that may be true in the short term, but there are lots of things that you can do to change things. And one of those is about, if you can't change a situation, you can change the way in which you view it. Your perspective on things becomes your reality. So thank you very much for joining us. Remember that for everybody that downloads this, there are going to be donations to B1G1. Recognize that you are the leader in your own life if you choose to be. But ultimately, when you make that active choice to become the leader of your own life, the quality of your life changes hugely. So take care. See you next week. Be the leader of your own life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have been listening to The Leadership for Life with your host, Gina Gardner. Make sure you tune in to W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV next Thursday and every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time for more Leadership for Life. If you missed any part of this episode or just want to hear or see it again, you can find the archive of the TV show on Talk 4 TV's YouTube channel and the podcast of The Leadership for Life on iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, Amazon Music, and wherever you listen to your podcast.